Welcome to Lifestyle Medicine Grand Round, sponsored by Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute and the William J. Folletti Center for Lifestyle Medicine, part of Trinity Health. And I am Dr. Ted Barnett, the founder and president of Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute. I am so glad that you are participating with us tonight for our very special Grand Rounds entitled Lifestyle Medicine, Reversing Heart Disease, and a whole lot more. We just want to encourage you all to partner with us if you can. We're working to change the medical paradigm by empowering your patients. We have a lot of Zoom-based facilitated programs that build motivation and competence in a socially supportive, interactive environment, several of which are ACLM certified. Uh, in fact, the two that are worth 10 CMEs are both ACM certified. If you go through as a practitioner, you will receive 10 credits. We've just launched Jumpstart on Demand for people who can't make it to our Jumpstart Live, which is our ACLM certified program. Jumpstart on Demand is available whenever you are. It's at your health, your schedule. It's the same science, the same tools, and we hope the same life-changing experience. Also, please respect the privacy of the patient you'll be hearing about tonight. Our case presenter, who also happens to be Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute's case coordinator. She's Dr. Kerry Graff, who's board certified in both family and lifestyle medicine. She's a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine and has practiced in primary care settings for over 27 years in Western New York. In 2017, she was one of the first 204 physicians to become board certified. 5 of us were in Rochester at the time. In lifestyle medicine, Dr. Graff spent the first half of her career treating patients in the way she was initially trained, with pills and procedures, and is devoting the second half of her career to helping patients reverse chronic disease with lifestyle changes instead. Dr. Kim Scheuer is board certified in both family practice and lifestyle medicine. She is our guest expert panelist tonight. She started the online focused practice Docs Lifestyle Medicine and practices with Love.Life Telehealth. Dr. Scheuer is licensed to see patients in 25 states. If you'd like to have her be your doctor, you have a 50% chance of being in a state that she is licensed in. She's also conversant in Spanish and American Sign Language. And Dr. Robert Brakey also is one of our regular panelists, board certified in family medicine and lifestyle medicine. He's been a family physician in Ann Arbor, Michigan for almost 40 years and serves as the medical director for IHA's William J. Folletti Center for Lifestyle Medicine, as well as the chair of IHA's governing board. He's also on the board of directors for several national organizations, including Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute. Dr. Melissa Sunderman has practiced for over 25 years and is board certified in internal medicine and lifestyle medicine. She has an incredibly long bio, but I shortened it tonight so we could get to the case. That she's the medical director of lifestyle medicine for Corewell Health System. In addition, she is chair of the Global Wellness Institute Lifestyle Medicine Initiative and co-founder of Revive Lifestyle Medicine Wellbeing Coaching and Retreats. As you know, I am board certified in lifestyle medicine, as well as diagnostic and interventional radiology. I'm the founder and president of RLMI. I'm also a fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and former member of ACLM's board of directors. Anyway, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Kerry Graff, who will be presenting our case tonight. Dr. Graff, and welcome to all of our panelists. Thank you for being here.
So this was a fun case from a couple of years ago, and I love this case because it kind of highlighted how people come into for lifestyle medicine consultations, typically because there's one big thing that kind of either happened or they're worried about happening, and then what you end up seeing is changes just across the board, and this was a wonderful example of that. So I'm going to talk to you about Jerry. Obviously, this is a fake name for this person. 59-year-old white male. He saw me for a lifestyle medicine consultation visit. So this was not a primary care patient of mine. At the time, I was practicing both primary care and doing a lifestyle medicine consultation service. And he saw me as a consultation visit after having 3 stents placed for unstable angina. He had 2 placed in his LAD, the left anterior descending, and 1 in his left circumflex artery. He did not have a heart attack. They caught this just from angina, increasing symptoms from that, but he had no heart damage at all, which was great. He was also found when he had his angiography, he had a 40% stenosis in his RCA, his right coronary artery, but that was not stented. Past medical history for Jerry. He had type 2 diabetes, which he stated was well controlled. He also had hyperlipidemia, which he stated was well controlled, and hypertension, which he stated was well controlled. And he knew that those were all risk factors for heart disease, so he was really ticked off that he had a heart problem despite the fact that all of his conditions were well controlled with medications. He also had some other things that weren't related to increased risk for heart attacks. He had psoriasis with psoriatic arthritis, and that was not really well controlled, but he hadn't really pursued doing much of anything besides what he was currently doing, which you'll find out in a minute. Hypothyroidism on thyroid replacement and well controlled. Long history of irritable bowel disease. It wasn't well controlled, but he wasn't taking any medication for it either. He had dabbled in trying a few things in the past. Nothing really seemed to make much of a difference. He just didn't think it was worth taking anything. But it did bother him fairly regularly. And he has a history of depression. And when I asked him how well controlled it was, he said it was well controlled until all the heart stuff happened, and now it's not as good. So, surgical history was just tonsillectomy as a child. I think he also had a vasectomy, but I think I forgot to put that in. Okay, medications at the time I saw him. I remember this is post 3 stents. He's on carvedilol, 12.5 milligrams twice a day, which was new since his stents. He was on clopidogrel, which is Plavix, 75 milligrams daily, again, new post stents, and baby aspirin, low dose aspirin, 81 milligrams daily, which was new after his stents as well. He had been on atorvastatin before his stents at 40 milligrams. That was increased to 80 milligrams. So he was just placed on that a few weeks prior. He was on lisinopril 10 milligrams daily, long-acting metformin 1,000 milligrams daily, levothyroxine 88 micrograms daily, methotrexate 25 milligrams weekly, and escitalopram 10 milligrams daily. And I'm just gonna put this up for the panelists about kind of like what jumps out at you so far about this patient. Is there anything that kind of has gotten your attention? This is really early in the history, but anything that's standing out to you so far?
Dr. Scheuer, our guest panelist. So I'll let you go first on this
The
one.
first thing I thought of was polypharmacy. Wow, he's on a lot of meds, and how are they interacting with each other? How are they affecting him? I had a couple of other things, like how do we keep him from restenosing or getting worse? Other issues that I thought about was psoriasis that's not well controlled, is inflammatory, and inflammation is associated with heart disease. Depression, we need to definitely address that, because people who are depressed after heart issues can have worse, do worse than when they're not. So those are some of the things. And then also I was just looking at that going, I wonder what his weight is and metabolic syndrome. So those are a couple of the things I thought of that would need to be addressed.
All right. Dr. Brakey, your thoughts, please.
Well, two things. One, this guy's 10 years younger than I am now. And I kind of think this long problem list of concerns. Back as a kid, I had severe dyshydrotic eczema and acne. And it's kind of there, save for the grace of Francis Moore LePay, go I. I could be this guy with a long problem list, but decades ago, I discovered the standard American diet wasn't good for me. And now I take care of so many people like him, where the next observation is the root cause of most of these, of his skin conditions, his eczema, his psoriasis, his heart disease, his hypertension and diabetes are all, again, laid squarely at the feet of the standard American diet. And it's sad to see, but it's also hopeful to know that with a doctor like Dr. Graff, that at least many of these can be mitigated or in many cases reversed. So I'm hopeful for this guy that he found the right doc, and we're going to see some good outcomes.
Great, thank you for that. Dr. Sunderman, your thoughts, please.
I agree with Dr. Scheuer and Dr. Brakey, and this just, I'm just hearing a pill for every ill, right? And this is what I'm seeing here, and what we're all seeing is this is inflammaging, right? All of these disease states are related to inflammation, and the pill for every ill model that so many of us were trained in, of a disease care model of, oh, your blood sugar is up. Here's your metformin. Oh, you're feeling sad. Here's your SSRI. Oh, you're having chest pain. Let's figure out what's going on. Put a stent in there and get you on medication. Oh, like, so what we're lacking, like Dr. Brakey said, is root cause, right? What is the underlying cause of all this? And I'm thinking we're going to find out that his lifestyle has a big contribution to all of this inflammaging. So yeah, excited to learn more, Dr. Graff.
Okay.
Yeah. How did they do, Dr. Graff?
Great. They did great. Of course they
All
did
right.
great. They're experts. So let me give you the
Okay.
rest of the history. It's hard if you go through everything and then you go back, you're going to miss the stuff from the beginning. And there was some significant stuff right in that get-go. So family history, father had coronary artery disease starting in his 50s, type 2 diabetes, and he died from a stroke at age 69. Mother was still alive. She was age 82 when I first saw Jerry in the office. She had some hypothyroidism, she had prediabetes and hypertension. He has a sister. I don't know whether she was older or younger, but she has type 2 diabetes and she's got hypertension on 4 medications to control it, and she's obese. And then Jerry has 2 children. He's got a daughter with some depression and a son with borderline hypertension. And the kids were under 30. So, or early 30s. I didn't put their ages in here, so I apologize for that. But that's pretty significant. The son's already developing borderline hypertension, so that got my attention. For social history, he's a business executive. He's got an MBA. He is married. Wife is a homemaker and a fabulous cook. And sometimes when you hear that as something when you're getting a history, you always cringe a little bit, or you get excited and you don't know which way it's going to go. So 2 grown children who live locally and 2 grandchildren who obviously live locally too. They were pretty young. And then I think about getting a history in terms of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. Is what we do with our fingers, our forks, and our feet. And fingers is toxic substances like smoking, alcohol, and drug use. Forks is what we're eating, and feet is physical activity. And those 3 things make up 80% of our health outcomes. But the 3 other things, the 3 other pillars in lifestyle medicine that are really critical as the foundation for being able to make successful changes on your fingers, forks, and feet are sleep. How much are you getting, and what's the quality? It's stress. How much do you have, and how well you managing it? And it is love, which is quality of relationships, but also what do you love enough? What gives your life meaning and purpose that you're willing to change what you're doing in order to be around for? And usually when I'm evaluating a patient for a lifestyle medicine consultation, I really start usually with love, because most people come, they make an appointment for a lifestyle medicine consultation because something freaked them out, usually. We all know that fear is a great motivator for a couple of months, and then it becomes a terrible motivator after 3 or 4 months, because it feels terrible to get yourself to try to engage in healthy activities by freaking yourself out every day that you're going to have a heart attack if you don't. So people either just get too depressed, or so depressed and so anxious that they don't care anymore about engaging in healthy behaviors, or they stick their head in the sand. So that's usually where I start. And that's where I started with Jerry. So what he really loved in life, and what made him want to stick around were his wife and his family. Although he added a caveat to that. He said he works so much and he's so stressed when he is home and doesn't feel like he's really connected to them when he is home. So kind of recognizing right from kind of asking that question that maybe he needs to make some changes with that. Eating his wife's terrific cooking, and up until this point anyway, it had not been the healthiest of food choices. So that was a bit of a red flag for me, like, oh boy, we might have trouble here. And then third thing he loved was red wine. So also we're like, oh crap, great. We're gonna be in trouble there too. And then golfing with his buddies, which he did a few times a month, and they would usually drink quite a few beers on their golf runs. So I always ask about whether people have any spiritual or religious backgrounds that I need to make sure that I'm aware of or take into account. He said he was not spiritual, not religious. So neither one really. He was raised Catholic, married in the Catholic Church. His children were both baptized there, but left the church shortly after, when his kids were pretty young, when all the sexual abuse issues came out. So basically, it's not something that we could use kind of as a motivator for him. And then sometimes I'll talk about sleep with folks, or sometimes stress, but I'll still stick on that bottom, those foundational three: sleep, stress, and love. So for stress, he had been working 60 hours a week prior to his heart issues. He'd taken off some time. He was sort of dabbling, going back to work a little bit, kind of here or there, but was really easing back into it. He said, I've got so many doctor's appointments right now that I can't go back to work full time, and wasn't really ready to do that in any case. Work had been very stressful recently because he thought that his company was going to be bought out by a larger company. And because of that, he thought that if that happened, he would lose his job, because the person who had his position at the bigger company would take on his job as well. So he was quite worried about that happening. And without me really prodding for this, he told me that he had a lot of financial stress over this whole thing, because he's got total monthly expenses of over $30,000, because he's got this big old house in the city that he needed for work, but then he also has got a cottage on the lake, and he had a bunch of car payments. And basically what he stated was that without his high-paying job, he would be screwed. So the thought that he might be losing his job was incredibly stressful to him. He states he manages stress by working harder, drinking alcohol, and overeating. So really no good stress management techniques in use currently. And then sleep, he was sleeping about 5.5, he was in bed for about 5.5 hours every night. He was really wired in the evenings, and basically would veg out in front of the TV for a couple of hours before bed. He was just too wired to fall asleep before midnight, so he didn't even try to fall asleep before then. He would fall asleep okay, but often would wake up after 3 or 4 hours and couldn't get back to sleep. The average amount of sleep he was actually getting per night was about 4 hours. He drinks 6 to 8 cups of coffee, plus or minus an energy drink or two, during the day to keep him going, because he works his crazy hours and he's not getting much sleep. Okay. And then the last thing so that's it for that part. And then we're just going to go on to the front half. So some pretty concerning things here, right? He's not sleeping well. He's got a lot of stress, which he's not managing well. He does have positive things in the love category, but they weren't as strong as they really maybe could be. Okay, so now let's go to the front half. Fingers, which is toxic substances. Tobacco, never used any tobacco products other than one cigar a year. Apparently he's got some guys thing that they get together and they all smoke a cigar on this one day, or I don't know. Alcohol, he reported he was drinking 2 to 3 drinks per night. But when you're actually like saying, how big are these drinks? How much are you really drinking? They were that many drinks, but they were big glasses of stuff. So it was the equivalent of 4 to 5 drinks on average, and up to 8 drinks on occasion. Mostly that was wine, but it could be beer or a mix of the two, sometimes mixed drinks as well. So pretty significant alcohol consumption, drug use. He did admit to some recreational cocaine use in his 20s, but no other drug use, nothing recent, and no marijuana. I have found that if you don't specifically ask people about marijuana, they don't consider it a drug anymore because it's legal. So I just make sure to specifically ask about that one separately from the others. Okay, so now we're going to move on to physical activity, which is feet. He had no regular physical activity routine. He golfed every 2 weeks during good weather. So, and he lives in upstate New York, so there's a lot of months there's no golfing. And even when he would golf, he'd use a cart. So not much physical activity there. That was his only real activity. He gets less than 3,000 steps a day on average, because he did have an Apple Watch. So you could track his steps on that. And most of that was walking in and out of the building where he works. And then let's talk about forks for him. So where he works, the executive suite basically has danishes and donuts and various pastries brought in every single day. There's this big table of them, and he would not eat breakfast at home. He would go in and he would start with one Danish and and then he would have coffee with cream and with sugar. Remember how many coffees he drinks, right? So 6 to 8 a day. So each of those coffees he would have with cream and sugar, kind of throughout the day. He would usually have a hobbit breakfast, right? A second breakfast, a little snack before lunch, which would be another Danish or two. And there's more coffee with more cream and sugar. And then lunch, they would order out from local restaurants. So they would usually pick a restaurant in the executive suite and have orders brought in from there every day. He said usually what he would get is a burger or a chicken dish. Sometimes it was pasta, but normally it would have meat in it. Dinner was meat, seafood, or pasta. Typically, almost always there was a vegetable, but it would usually be like one serving of vegetables at dinner. And he would usually eat 2 helpings of whatever the main dish part was, but not have extra of the vegetable. And he didn't usually have dessert. So what that translates to in kind of like servings per day of kind of each of those things. So for the whole plants, fruit was maybe 1. Vegetables, maybe 2. You'd have a vegetable at dinner, and then there might be lettuce and tomato, or some pickles on whatever sandwich he was having. Whole grains was, I gave him a half of 1 a day because some days did include a whole grain, but most days not. He didn't eat beans on any kind of regular basis, and potatoes, he would sometimes get French fries. So there might be some potatoes in there, kind of half the days of the week. Meat, he was usually having 2 servings at dinner and then at least a serving at lunch. So meat was usually 3 a day. Dairy, often there was cheese on his lunch sandwich and sometimes cheese in the dinner, but he was doing the tons of creamer in his coffee, so a fair amount of heavy cream basically. Eggs, he doesn't typically eat eggs like eggs, but there are usually eggs in pastries. So we counted that as like 1 a day, kind of just guessing. He doesn't usually eat fish. Oil, there'd usually be oil in what his wife made for dinner and in his lunch. It might really be more than 2 tablespoons a day, but I put it as 2 servings. I'm not wanting to make it look worse than it already was, because sugar and flour, which most of this was sugar, but there were, between the pastries and everything else, that ranked about 12 servings a day. So if you're looking at what percentage of his diet was whole plants, it was less than about 10% of his calories. So pretty similar to the standard American diet. Okay, so let's get into some physical exam for Jerry. He was 5'10". His weight was 205 pounds, which puts his BMI at 29.4, so not quite in the obese range, but fairly overweight. His blood pressure was 125/72 when I saw him, and heart rate was 62. His physical exam was otherwise unremarkable, and we won't waste our time going through that. Labs, CBC was normal. Electrolytes and kidney function were also normal. These labs all came with him, so I didn't repeat his labs. If I had gotten his labs, I would have also gotten a CRP because I would have liked to have known what his inflammatory markers were prior to him making changes, but he didn't come with those, and so and I didn't make him go back for more labs. His thyroid labs were normal. His SGOT was 198, which is quite elevated. His SGPT was also elevated at 96. Total bilirubin was normal at 1.2. Hemoglobin A1C was controlled at 6.8, so certainly wasn't in the normal range. It's still diabetic range, but under 7 is considered decently controlled, so was controlled. His microalbumin was elevated, however, at 42. His total cholesterol was 140. His LDL was 72, and his HDL was 38. This was actually drawn before his simvastatin had been his atorvastatin had been increased to 80 from the 40. So, so some of the improvements that you may see kind of coming may be related to his medication increase. Okay, so we've got a poll. What would you prioritize for this first visit? Be getting him off his alcohol immediately, encouraging him to get his wife involved, adopting 100% whole food plant-based diet, or all of the above?
Okay. I'm going to go to the, well, let's analyze this first. Go ahead and analyze this, Kerry, and then I want to hear from the panelists about what they would do and what their diagnosis is for this guy, okay?
To hear what the panelists have to say, and then I'll tell you what I did. So
Well, I know. Okay. Well, anyway, so we got, let's go to,
most
let's go
people
to
said
Dr.
all of the above, that all of
Right,
these were hugely important and that we should really prioritize all of these
right,
right at that first visit.
right. Let's go to Dr. Sunderman. Dr. Sunderman, what are your thoughts, please?
So I agree that all of these are really important. I mean, all of the pillars of lifestyle medicine that could be optimized. And um, the the thing that I sort of chafe at is immediately, because some people cannot do that, right? We do have some patients who are like black and white, like, you know what, just like cold turkey transition. And then other people need more of a step by step. So I think, and I'm sure you did this, Dr. Graff, is to sort of motivational interviewing, meet your patient where they're at. The fact that his wife does the majority of the cooking, and getting her on board, and it sounds like they have a good, close relationship, I think is a really important and pivotal action, because if she's controlling sort of what he's eating, particularly for the dinner meal and maybe some of his other meals, and getting her invested in the power of a whole food plant-based dietary pattern. But absolutely, I think if he transitions to a 100% whole food plant-based dietary pattern, actually get some fiber in his diet to optimize his gut microbiome. We know that 70% of the immune system and inflammation is in the gut microbiome, and 90% of his serotonin production is going to be in the gut microbiome as well. And his fiber intake is critically low. So just trying to get more antioxidants, phytonutrients, and more fiber in his dietary pattern. And with his elevated liver enzymes, certainly can be related to alcohol. He probably has a component of mazzled. We now use the term mazzled, the metabolic associated steatotic liver disease, probably associated with that, with his elevated BMI. That's probably elevating his liver enzymes. So I think he needs to do all of these. I just would need to feel him out a little bit more as to, is he ready to just go cold turkey? But I think definitely getting the family and the wife involved.
Great. Thank you for that. Dr. Scheuer, your thoughts, please.
Well, I agree. I did say all of the above, but it does make a huge difference as to where he is on his readiness to move forward, and getting family support, like his wife involved, is really important. I think trying to encourage switching over from more the higher animal protein to the more plant protein would be helpful, getting the fiber in, increasing fruits and veggies. Basically, even a little bit makes a difference on cardiac disease and all-cause mortality. It would help his liver, his kidneys, all of which are affected, obviously, by his numbers. And then the alcohol and the caffeine. It's so interesting. If you can get him to sleep better, he'll eat better. And he's, you know, having tons of caffeine, which if he's a slow metabolizer is going to affect him later in the night when he wakes up. Same with the alcohol. He may be able to go to sleep, but then will wake up later. So, and what he puts into the caffeine and into his coffee, I mean, if we can get him to get off of those things and get him sleeping better, then getting him eating better, and making and getting his wife involved. So it's I agree with everything that Melissa said. And so it'd be interesting to see what Dr. Graff says.
Right. Dr. Brakey.
And of course, I agree with everything my two esteemed colleagues have said, lean more towards what Melissa mentioned in terms of get his wife involved, because you're going to need help on this one. It's amazing to me that here's this guy with multiple teachable moments over several years, hypertension, obesity, and then diabetes. And now you have a heart disease with requiring stents, and he's still eating a diet that's only 10% or less health supporting. Where's the diabetes educator? Where's the cardiac rehab program? Where are the people kind of inspiring him? And I'd be interested, Kerry, if he thought that his diet was pretty good because he was eating, less red meat than he used to, or for some reason he was thinking that this was okay because his diabetes and his cholesterol are under control. Now, granted, he's needing meds for them, but a lot of people use that as they don't think about that. Like, it's under control, so I don't need to worry about it anymore. I can eat what I want. So my sense is this is a guy you're going to need support. You might tell him to adopt the whole food plant-based immediately, stop drinking immediately. And those are the right things for him to do, but goals should be challenging but attainable. And my sense is that in this case, you might say it, you might lose him. It would not be attainable to have those all the way immediately. So a stepwise approach, assessing where he is, celebrating incremental success, and making sure that you bring him along in a way that will inspire assistance. And having his wife, who does the cooking and is clearly influential in his life, on your side will be a good first step from my perspective.
Right.
Dr.
Thank you for
Graff,
that.
can I ask a quick question? Was he self-referred to see you, or was he referred from his PCP?
Was not referred from his PCP. He had heard about me,
Yeah,
and
so that means that he was
but it wasn't
actually
through his medical team.
right. So maybe in a contemplative state of change, the fact that he was, self-referred, which that's encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dr. Graff, would you, as the moderator, I'd like to take my little prerogative here. Could you go back to the laboratory slide? It's a couple of slides back. I just think we
Yeah,
might want to, I don't know, maybe Dr. Brakey could just quickly discuss some of those labs, because I think there's a lot to be learned there.
So one of the things that really, so I appreciate everybody's comments. Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful comments. I was worried with how much he was drinking. If we had gotten him off his alcohol immediately, completely, first of all, you remember, he's got no coping skills, right? This guy's got no stress management skills that are healthy. He's using that as his stress management tool, right? So you need to replace it with something else before you get that out. Now, I get that it's causing a problem, because when you see this kind of ratio of the SGOT to the SGPT, where the OT is more than twice the number of the SGPT, that's highly, highly suggestive that he's got a significant alcohol problem causing his liver enzyme abnormality. So, so while I would really like to prioritize the alcohol, because it's all he needs is to have a failed liver on top of everything else. First of all, he doesn't have any stress management techniques yet, and secondly, I was worried he was going to withdraw, because my guess is that maybe the alcohol was even more, because he was definitely minimizing it when we first talked about it, and then I was like, well, how big are these? And then kind of became more, and then there was a suggestion that it was, it might have been significant. So I would really not have pushed the alcohol as the first component. I would have said this is going to be important in the long run, I didn't want to say we cut it out, because although it'd be great if he completely cut it out, but for me, just getting him open to the idea about maybe we will work on this over time, but right now we need to prioritize some other things. And for me, the critical component that would have completely sunk any ability for this guy to make change is if his wife was not on board and she's cooking these delicious meals that he loves every single day, and he's going home to that. There's no way he's going to make himself a healthy meal. He doesn't have time. He wouldn't have the willpower to stick with this, even if he had his hands on it. So for me, the critical component was, where is the wife on things? Is she willing to work as a team? Is she willing to make changes that make it easier for Jerry to make changes? Dr.
Kerry,
Benji, what else was it on the labs that stood out to you?
well, I mean, the microalbumin,
Yeah.
hemoglobin A1C, and then why don't you go ahead back to that slide with the initial plan?
Okay. Just one other thing to kind of bring up on this slide when you're looking at that is the microalbumin. It was 42, despite the fact that his diabetes is considered well controlled and he's on an ACE inhibitor already. Now, it's not a big dose. He's only on 10 of lisinopril. But it's worrisome that he's still having microalbuminuria even with that. So, okay. So for me, it was really about getting his wife involved, and I'll tell you what was written out on his initial plan with me. The first was like just having the kind of like, okay, you had this bad thing happen, but this is really great news that almost everything you've got going on here is medically reversible if you change the habits that are causing them. So I wanted to make sure that he kind of felt like he's got a lot of room, and that it's not really just about his heart that we're talking about. It's about kind of like his whole health here. We don't want to fix one thing and make something else bad. So almost everything was reversible if we changed what's causing it. And I was very direct with him. I said, I don't think that you could be successful with making the habits that would really help you here if we don't have your wife on board. So I need you to bring her to your next appointment. And I wasn't sure I was going to see this guy back. I was like, okay, we'll see if he shows back up again. What's going to happen with that? I had him stop his methotrexate because he said it hadn't been helpful. And it was one of the things that jumped out at me on his initial list of medications was that post-stent, he's on clopidogrel and he's on baby aspirin, but he's on methotrexate, which increases risk of bleeding significantly. And he's taking a medicine that's not really helping, and it increases your risk of bleeding. And we can't take him off the other two medications. They're absolutely indicated when you have stents placed, but how can we reduce his overall risk? And since it's not helping anyway, if it had been helping some, I would have been a little bit more nervous about taking him off of it. I probably would have worked on getting him switched to something else. The other thing that jumped out at me was that he was on escitalopram. And both citalopram and escitalopram have significant increased bleeding risk associated with them that some of the other antidepressant medications do not have. And I had recommended that we switch him to bupropion. XL doing that, so the long-acting one doing 150 milligrams just in the morning so that it wouldn't interfere with his sleep any more than he kind of already was dealing with. And the other concern for the escitalopram is, in addition to the bleeding risk, is that it can cause heart rhythm issues, especially used in combination with beta blockers. And he's on a beta blocker. He's on the carvedilol, and he needs to be on that because he's got coronary artery disease. So he's got to be on this med for a very strong indication. What else can we do to reduce his risk? And then I asked him to bring, not only bring your wife to the next visit, but I asked them if they would watch Forks Over Knives with his wife. So he got up, so she would be able to kind of see what was going on as well, especially if she's doing the cooking. Okay, so they both came in to see me about 3 weeks later. I was a little surprised because I think I had scheduled it for like a month and they saw me sooner than that. And he came into the clinic along with his wife. They were smiling and being very like lovey-dovey with each other. They sat like right next to each other. It was like really kind of cute. And then, so I'm thinking, oh, this is going well. And then he tells me that, yeah, he lost his job. His company was acquired. He was losing his job. And then he was talking about how he was terrified to tell his wife that he was losing his job. But he did get offered this nice severance package, which was great. But his wife took the news very well, and he's decided to take an early retirement. And that they had already talked over what they planned to do about kind of the financial things that he was worried about. And he and his wife planned to sell the big house that they had that they didn't need to have near his work anymore and live full-time on the lake, which they loved. And then he stated something like his full-time job for the immediate future is taking care of his health and spending time with the people he loves. I think he kind of had this feeling like, I kind of think of myself as being invincible, but maybe I'm not. And something bad could have happened. It didn't, but it could have. And I need to not spend time with the people that I love. His wife said that she had really missed the fun, happy guy she married, and that he had been so busy and stressed lately that she felt like she didn't even live with the same person, and she was really enjoying having the fun Jerry back. And then she's actually really hilarious, and she swears a lot. So she added something that she always hated that big effing house without the abbreviated version of that, which kind of made everybody laugh. So they did watch Forks Over Knives together, and Jerry's wife immediately started making whole food plant-based food for them because he's been home, he's not working. So she's making oatmeal with fruit for breakfast, a big salad with beans and balsamic vinegar for lunch. It turns out that he didn't eat beans, but he actually likes them. And then a whole food plant-based dinner of some sort, and she was experimenting with that. She's really enjoying kind of doing this new cooking style, and she bought a whole bunch of new cookbooks, and she's making new dishes a couple times a week. He's lost 8 pounds already, and she's lost 6. He did have some gas and bloating at first with the diet changes, especially because she kind of did it kind of all at once right away. But his IBS had settled down, and he said that it now seems better at 3 weeks post the diet change than it was before he made his diet improvements, even though that first week it was a little touch and go. He cut back on his coffee on his own to 3 or 4 cups a day because he just didn't need it as much now because he's sleeping 7 to 8 hours at night because he's not getting up and he's not stressed about work. He had been weaning his coffee down by about a cup a week, and his plan was to get down to 2 cups in the morning only. And he started drinking his coffee black and finds he actually really likes it that way. And the whole sugar cream thing was kind of just a habit. So that was like super lucky. This is one of those cases where like you just make like little suggestions and they run with it, and you get so happy because honestly, you don't really need to do that much work. You just point something in the right direction and they go. So super happy. He did try the bupropion. That was the switch over from the escitalopram, but he stopped it because it caused nightmares, which is not not an uncommon side effect from it. Usually it causes just really vivid dreams, but he actually had ones that weren't very pleasant. So, but despite the fact that he's not taking any antidepressant, he reports that his mood is better now than he was on the escitalopram. And he wants to see how he does at this point without being on anything. Now, this is only 3 weeks in, right? So the SSRI that he had been on is actually still just starting to get out of his system. So I wasn't sure that he wasn't going to tank and get really depressed down the line, but right now he's doing okay. I'm like, okay, we'll just watch this. He also stated that the antidepressant made him feel really numb when he was on it, which he said was better than feeling really horribly depressed, but he feels happier and more alive not on that medication. He reported that he sat on his covered porch overlooking the lake in the mornings every day and loved listening to the birds. And he said something like, I forgot what it felt like to just exist without having to do something, and it was glorious. He's still drinking red wine at dinner some of the time, but he and his wife have agreed that 1 bottle between them is their limit per day. And his wife noted that his sexual performance is better when he doesn't drink alcohol, and she kindly reminds him of that when they're sitting down to a glass of wine. That has been a great incentive to stay off the alcohol or keep it at a very low level. Now, in my back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, it might be better because he's not drinking, or it might be better because he's now off the antidepressant, which might have been interfering with that, or might have just been like I was sleep deprived and now he's more interested because he's not exhausted all the time. But I did not say anything. I'm just going to like go with the fact that this change made a big difference, and cutting back on the alcohol really helped to help keep him motivated. Okay, he did report at that visit, so we're only 3 weeks in, his blood pressure was running low. It was about 100/60, and he was getting dizzy at times, and it had gotten to the point where it was bothersome. So my next lifestyle medicine plan for him was to continue to eat as whole food plant-based as possible, but keeping the fat low. Some of the cookbooks that Jerry's wife bought used a lot of high-fat plant-based foods. So they had coconut milk and cashews and avocados. And unfortunately, that was one of the ones that he was drawn to actually wanting to try. So, kind of needed a reminder that it's not just whole food plant-based, that you've gotta be careful about the high-fat plant foods. It looks like he does have this little bit of spirituality side of him with how wonderful it was to not do anything and listen to the birds. So, encouraged him to continue to look for ways to connect with nature for stress release. And then we started talking about engaging in some sort of physical activity that he actually enjoyed daily. So not going to the gym unless he really likes going to the gym, but doing something that he really likes. Continue to limit the alcohol, and I cut back on his lisinopril to 5 milligrams because the only other choice was cutting back on his carvedilol, and I was too worried the cardiologist would shoot me. And I was a little nervous about that because his microalbumin, as you remember, was elevated. So I wasn't sure whether that was going to make that worse or not, but we can't have the guy passing out and breaking a hip or something, so cut back on that. And then he hadn't been tracking his blood sugars, so I encouraged him to track his blood sugars fasting and 1 to 2 hours after meals, so we can get an idea. He's only on metformin, so we don't expect him to get hypoglycemic, so I wasn't that worried about him. If he was on something other than metformin, I would have been adamant about him tracking it and being very careful as he's making diet changes. But I wasn't that worried about it, so I didn't even think to ask him about to do that at the last visit. And then they came back in 6 weeks later, comes in with his wife again. They were continuing to eat whole food plant-based, but now we're doing the low-fat version. He's lost another 6 pounds. He is loving life on the lake. They are moving ahead. We're moving ahead with selling the big house in the city. And he found that whole thing really super liberating. And he wasn't feeling overwhelmed by doing it because he had time to schedule because he wasn't working 60 hours a week. He states he started fishing off the dock, but then he kind of walks back and says, but don't worry, Doc, I'm not eating them. I'm catching and releasing. We're not eating the fish. And he was finding fishing to be incredibly relaxing. His kids and grandkids have been coming down regularly to the lake house to visit, and he loves that. He hadn't spent a lot of time with them before because he was working a lot, and there wasn't much to do when they would come over to his house in the city, but there's plenty to do down at the lake. He started swimming in the lake regularly. He was kayaking a few days a week, and he and his wife take walks every day for at least 30 minutes. She does not go in the water. She does not like to get wet. So she's not swimming with him. And she doesn't actually like kayaking either because I don't know. She likes being beside the lake, but not on the lake. Dizziness went away with a reduction in the lisinopril dose. And then I didn't ask about this, but he just brought it up. I should have thought to ask about it, but he brought it up before I thought to do so. And he noted that his psoriasis and his psoriatic arthritis are much better, despite being off of the methotrexate. And in fact, his plaques almost completely resolved, and he hadn't noticed any joint soreness in weeks. And then his irritable bowel symptoms almost completely gone since he was last seen. Although his wife did make him a dish of dal, which is a lentil-based Indian dish that he said nearly did him in with gas and bloating, which I have a personal experience of eating a big dish of dal early in my transition to a whole food plant-based diet and could commiserate with him on that one. His labs at that next appointment, and I was, again, I was worried about that microalbumin because we reduced his lisinopril. CBC was normal, which it was prior, as electrolytes and kidney function normal like they were before. TSH and free T4 were still in the normal range. In fact, his TSH was actually now in the optimal range from where it was before, normal but not optimal. And his SGOT and SGPT are amazingly better on less alcohol, which is great because, they had increased his statin medication from 40 to 80. So if this were more related to the statin, I would be, even more concerned about his liver function. Bilirubin was normal. Hemoglobin A1C is down to 5.8. So now he's not even in the diabetic range. He's in the pre-diabetic range. Microalbumin down to 22. So that was a lucky win. Total cholesterol was 120, LDL 54, HDL was 32. So total cholesterol was down another 20 points. But again, the previous one was on the 40 milligrams of the atorvastatin. This is on 80. So how much of it was diet related and how much of it was statin is a little hard to know. Jerry reports that when he started checking his blood sugars after his last appointment, the fasting glucoses were all under 100 and his after meal sugars were about 130. We hadn't really talked about the fact that he wouldn't get hypoglycemic. I think he was worried that he would because I was having him check it. So he was scared enough about that he stopped his metformin about 3 weeks ago prior to the visit. So not that long after I saw him. And his blood sugars continue to run about the same off the medication. So that hemoglobin A1C down to 5.8 was not being on metformin at all for the last 3 weeks of that. And then he inquired about the possibility of weaning down or getting off other medications. So there's another poll. Which of his current medications could be weaned at this point? Is it carvedilol, 12.5 milligrams twice a day? Clopidogrel, 75 milligrams daily. Whoops, that's in there twice. The next one should be aspirin. So the second clopidogrel, change that in your mind to aspirin. 81 milligrams daily, atorvastatin 80 milligrams daily, lisinopril 5 milligrams daily, or levothyroxine 88 micrograms daily. Well, let me give you a couple of hints. Right now, we are between 3 and 4 months post stents.
Okay.
Huh.
I'm going to ask for Dr. Scheuer to analyze this, please.
Sure. Well, I think it's really quite important. First of all, actually, before anything else, I love that you started with positivity with him, and that made a huge difference. So the fact that you involved his wife and started with positivity. And then he started forest bathing and getting into nature and all that is wonderful. I love it. But specifically to this, he's already off of a couple of medicines by himself, which is okay. And then I picked levothyroxine. And the reason I did that was because he's only 3 to 4 months post stent. And so I think he needs the anticoagulants for now. His cholesterol, although it has come down, he's now to where I would have liked him to be with an LDL of 50-ish. And I wouldn't want to go up on that yet. I wouldn't want him to take down his atorvastatin and then have him go up on that, especially just being pretty quick after the stent. The lisinopril, I think, is still also cardioprotective, and he's doing well without symptoms, and the carvedilol also cardioprotective. So I wouldn't mess with that without worried about getting hurt by a cardiologist either. So my thought was his levothyroxine's now in a more ideal range. He has a little variation to go. As he's losing weight, he's going to need less. And so that's why I went to that.
Great. Thank you for that. All right, let's see the next slide, Dr. Graff.
Okay. All right, so basically I didn't feel comfortable doing anything with his beta blocker for the exact reason that Dr. Scheuer said was that you don't want to mess with a cardiologist. They can really read you the riot act on that one, and it just didn't make a lot of there's no way to take him off his Plavix and his aspirin yet. It's too soon. It's not safe to do that. The lisinopril, his microalbumin is okay, but he's still diabetic, although he's controlled, and it's being on an ACE inhibitor is indicated when you have diabetes. And his blood pressure was good, so it wasn't too low. So if it had been low, then I'd be like, okay, maybe we do need to reduce this, but I left that alone. But the one thing we could do, because he really wanted to try to come off of something, the one thing I felt like we could try was to put him on wean him down on the levothyroxine. So kind of my protocol for weaning people on levothyroxine. And just a reminder for why you can do that, not just for the weight loss, but most hypothyroidism is autoimmune mediated. And once you have taken away the trigger, which is often an animal-based protein, often it's dairy, that triggers that reaction, once you get off of it, you can often wean down because you stop making that antibody. Not always. If you've got somebody who's on 175 micrograms daily, they're probably not going to be able to wean off because they probably have burnt out their thyroid at this point. But if you've got somebody who's like under 100 or under, I think it's worth trying. And you're not gonna, the only way you know is to cut back, recheck a level, cut back, recheck a level. And so we just weaned down by I weaned down to 75 micrograms for 3 months, rechecked his labs, they were okay. So then we went to 50 micrograms for 3 months, checked his labs, they were good. And then I went to 25 milligrams for 3 months, checked his labs, they were good, and then I took him off. So that's kind of my typical protocol for weaning somebody or trying to wean somebody from levothyroxine. You're not going to get anybody into too big a trouble if they're, if they get slightly under replaced, and you got to go back up. And you give the thyroid time to kind of take over what function it can from the medication. So that's what I ended up doing with him. Okay, so I just have one more slide to share, which was the most recent update I have. This was, it was about 18 months after his initial visit with me, which was about 2 years ago. So unfortunately, I left my previous position, so I don't have ongoing contact to find out how he's currently doing. But when I saw him last, he came in with his wife again. Other than that first appointment, they always came in together. They had celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary at their lake cottage, which I put that in quotes because seriously, it is twice as big as my house, but in terms of square footage. Anyway, they had a party with their family and friends. He continues to eat a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet, as was his wife. But he also got his sister on board, and his son, and his daughter. Not his mother, though. Anyway, he no longer has any signs of diabetes. He's got a hemoglobin A1C of 5.4 on no medications at all. His psoriasis is completely resolved. He has no arthritic complaints, so the psoriatic arthritis is completely gone. Again, he's not taking any medicines for that anymore. IBS is gone. He denies any signs of depression, and he was off of his thyroid medication with normal labs. He had not had any angina, and he said he felt better than he had since he was a teenager. His cardiologist had insisted that he stay on the high dose of atorvastatin, although his total cholesterol was under 120 and his most recent LDL was 45. He was off the clopidogrel at that point, but continued on the aspirin 81 milligrams daily. Just a reminder or education for those of you who don't know, if different cardiac stents, you have to be on clopidogrel for various times, but for most folks, they can come off of it after either 6 months or a year. His cardiologist was agreeable to decreasing his carvedilol because he talked to him about reducing his meds too, and went down to 6.25 milligrams twice a day, but wouldn't let him come off of it entirely. He was still on lisinopril at 5, although I'm not really sure if he needs it. I consider his diabetes in remission. His blood pressure was completely normal, and he had no microalbuminuria. So when I last saw him, he was still on that medication. I don't know, Dr. Scheuer, you said about being that lisinopril was cardio protective, but I thought that lisinopril was really helpful post heart attacks. But if it's just in the realm of angina, is it helpful in those cases as well? So I'd be interested to know that. But that was the last that I had, and I will stop sharing my slides and we can talk about it.
Yeah, Dr. Sunderman, her analysis, and then I want to get to some people in the audience. I see Dr. McHugh is out there as well. I'm sure he's got
Yeah,
something.
I was going to say, hi, John. I see John there.
Yeah.
What an incredible case, Dr. Graff. And just, I mean, you have changed the trajectory of not only this patient's lives, but his wife, his family, everyone that's surrounding him. And I'm going to go back to one of the first slides when you're taking the family medical history. And so often we see that people, our patients and maybe even clinicians who are not lifestyle medicine say, well, you have a family history. I see a strong family history of heart disease, of diabetes, of depression, of hyperlipidemia. So this is in your genes. And what you were clearly able to demonstrate and empower him, because he did this on himself with himself and his wife, is that his genes are not his destiny. And I think that is such an important message. I know we talk about this all the time, but I think there's such a great percentage of people out there that are not aware of that. Because I know whenever I explain this to patients, I'm like, genes are not your destiny. Like, this is really good news. So you clearly demonstrated that. And just that, when you look at studies, like we are as healthy as like the 5 people who surround us, and now you have changed that, so that ripple effect is going to happen throughout his family. And I think a really important thing in strategy, when you brought the wife in, when I'm thinking about the dynamic, right? It sounds like they have a loving, supportive marriage. But her love language, the wife, was food, right? And cooking and providing for him. So to be able to still nurture and show her love and caretaking for her husband, but in a different way, that's actually embracing health and vitality and educating her. She was still able to show that love language. And for him, it seems like his love language was the caretaker, financially the caretaker of the family, and that stress that he had superimposed on himself. And I, refer to the book When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate, that all of that stress that he had been withholding, right, at some point that is going to come out someplace. And with him, of all that stress that was going on in the maladaptive behaviors, it manifested in all of these chronic diseases. So well done, Dr. Graff. You just gave life and to this family, and they will carry forth, and it really shows what the power of lifestyle medicine. So congratulations.
Hear, 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 hear. Dr. Brakey, your thoughts, please.
One of my early mentors, Dr. John McDougall, used to say, I am the luckiest, happiest doctor in the world because my patients get better. And I feel like that. I know many of us feel like that. We've practiced sort of both ways with medications treating symptoms for people where you're paddling upstream against the standard American diet, overstressed, not sleeping, couch potato patients, and you're adding more meds and their gradual decline, and you're trying to console them, and it's frustrating, it's challenging, and yet this is a great example. I like in the Jumpstart program where Ted goes food, not food, And he suddenly, this light bulb went off as he watched Forks Over Knives, and you inspired him, Kerry, to look at things differently. And he started saying, I'm going to switch to food. I'm going to, take time for myself and go fishing. I'm going to take time to sleep and make time to sleep. Somehow you helped turn his life around along several of those pillars, but in a manner that then harnessed that innate healing ability that we all have within us. So that even though at the beginning you talked about, I'm under pretty good control. My diabetes is, 6.8. My cholesterol's good on atorvastatin. My, kidneys are working. It felt like he was doing okay. And that's what the medical establishment was portraying. You're doing good. Take your meds, add a few more now and then, but you're doing good. And he was not. He was sick inside. His arteries were clogging. His inflammation was building up. His kidneys were straining and spilling protein. So you harness that ability to bring out the health that wanted to come out all along. And then that gets into that positive spiral. Instead of the negative we've all seen, he started feeling better, rash improving, less need for medications, improved vitality, better social relationships, family involved. And suddenly it's like, wow, life is great for both patient and for provider. So this is the joy of practice again. We see so much now with provider burnout. And I know many on this call are experiencing that treadmill, that sense of overwhelm that we all get from trying to paddle upstream against so much challenge. And this is what, those of us who have been in lifestyle medicine and are practicing it in depth are feeling every day. So Kerry, thank you. He's fortunate to have found you. We are all fortunate that you've shared this great case with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. And Dr. Scheuer, if you could just comment on your thoughts, and also if you could maybe say a few words about psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. He got better, right? So over to you, Dr. Scheuer.
Okay, well, so a couple of things that, first of all, yeah, fabulous case, and I love the ripple effect. I love how you actually looked at the things that the specialists don't look at in terms of how many meds he's on and the interactions, et cetera. You asked about the lisinopril. There is some evidence that it does help with angina, but these are all studies done on people on standard American diets. He is no longer on that. So, can he get off of that? Eventually, yeah, I think he probably could, because, he's not on that inflammatory diet anymore, as shown by improving his labs, improving his vitality, improving his psoriasis, which is inflammatory. I mean, so he's definitely, the stress is gone and all of that. So he's working on every part of his life. And I love, love, love that his family's healthier because he's healthier. So I hope I answered your questions, but that is just a fabulous case. So thank you for presenting it.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel a little guilty presenting it. I mean, like, it's a great case because it's got some interesting teaching points to it. But I had to do very little work. Like, there wasn't, like, you just make this suggestion and they run with it. Like, there were all these things that they did that I didn't even suggest yet. I'm like, okay, just watch Forks Over Knives, just get that far. And they come back and he's already eating a whole food plant-based diet completely, right? It was a little high fat, so it wasn't perfect. But
you made the suggestion in the right way. You started with love. And so you did huge. He would have, if he'd come to a different physician who, was clinical and depressing, and you have this for the rest of you didn't do that for him. So don't downplay what you did. It was fabulous.
I think too, Dr. Graff, starting with the love also, that really plays into the why, right? He mentioned his family, and that becomes why. When we're looking at behavior change, we know that people often know the what, they know, the why, but they don't know the how, or really that motivation behind there. So starting off and asking about the most important things in his life, and he mentions his family, that becomes then the why, and why he wants to strive for a better life and a healthier life.
Yeah, thanks for that. Dr. McHugh, would you mind jumping in here? Your camera's on. You want to say a few words or not?
Oh, I didn't realize my camera's on. Hey, Ted, how are you? Good to see you.
Great.
This
Good
is
to
such
see
a
you.
fantastic case. You know, I really have to say the thing that I heard, and I heard it from other people, and I thought it was so beautiful, was to bring in the wife early and create allies and focus on that. Because I think this could have gone down so many different pathways where, say, alcohol, which is very addictive, could have been the issue that was discussed. And I feel like it was really positive to bring in the wife so early, and I love that example.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt
Yeah,
like
no,
in
I-
this case, if we didn't have her on board, we were dead in the water.
Yeah, yeah. And it's
So
so
like,
much about
let's see if
strategy.
yeah, if we can just get her on board, at least we've got a fighting chance. And I just got lucky. So
Mhm.
You know, one other thing I just wanted to mention that I think is so important. Um, I feel like normal values are so misleading to patients. And how do we work on that? This patient was taking medications to get to normal values, and that wasn't enough,
Mhm.
right? So how do we change that paradigm in primary care?
Yeah, it's a great
especially when
question.
Yeah,
we're, you know,
it's
we're
interesting.
rewarded based on our outcomes, based on this
You got-
data points.
Yeah,
But
right,
how you
right,
get
right.
there makes a big difference.
You
If you
Well,
get
guys
I-
got-
on
Go
four
ahead.
Right, I can
meds,
recall-
normal blood pressure because you fixed your lifestyle stuff, huge difference.
I'm not.
Right,
I'm
well,
not.
I've even had
I'm not ending
patients-
this meeting. Just showing this.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Sunderman. Keep
I
talking.
was just going to say, I've had patients when you ask, do you have high blood pressure? Do you have cholesterol? And they'll say, no, I don't. Because in their head, they don't have those issues anymore because they're taking a pill. So
Right.
it's really interesting, just that mental scope. No, I don't have those issues. You know, I don't have diabetes. Not understanding that they have a Band-Aid on top of this.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mhm.
you know, as Dr. Miku implies, we think of it as normal, but it's not really. It's a reference range based on a
Yeah.
95% confidence interval for what normal sick Americans have. And
Yeah,
cholesterol
yeah.
is the example of that. In the Framingham study, you start at 150 with a mean of 212 and go up to 290 on the bell curve. And that pretty much guarantees 100% of people will get heart disease because the bell curve in the blue zones starts at 88 and with a mean of 115 and ends at 150. Their coronary artery disease is pretty much zero. So what is a normal cholesterol? It's what doesn't cause heart disease. It's normal human. And similarly with BUN, with microalbumin, with uric acid, with so many of these different levels, we can look at what is plant-based normal. And I actually gave a whole talk on this. I think you came to it at Summerfest on what is plant-based normal, because we need to look at white blood cells. Another example, our normal range is 4 to 10, but optimal is 2.8 to 6.0. If you look at where best health is,
Yeah.
BMI we think of as 19 to 25, but optimal is 18 to 23. And what's optimal is very different from what is our usual reference range. And patients are deceived by getting the normal right. And then Melissa, exactly right. If you're doing it by a Band-Aid, that's like saying, I got to get a good analogy for this, but you're putting a crutch in there to hold it up and saying, now it's good. No, it's not really good until you take away the crutch and see if you can get it normal under those circumstances. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's an important point. I do want to hear somebody mention something about his psoriatic arthritis, which I thought was pretty interesting, right? I mean, there's really great evidence that this diet really helps people with psoriatic arthritis, not just from losing weight, but for whatever other reason. So, yeah. Well, any other final comments before we break up this incredible meeting? All right. Well, thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Dr. Brooks. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, Dr. Brakey. Thank you, Dr. Graff, for doing an incredible job presenting that case. You did the heavy lifting here. Thank you, Dr. Scheuer, for your infinite wisdom. Thank you, Dr. Sunderman, for always showing up and being here and having so many wise things to say. And thank you, Dr. McHugh, for your comments as well. And thank you, everybody else, for showing up. And again, be on the lookout for that email that will have a link to a CME credit. So good night, everybody. And thank you, Serena, in the background. Bye-bye, everybody.
And thank you, Dr. Veggie.
Yes,
Yay,
thank you, Ted. Bye.
Bye.
All right.